it would be. And so therefore I've got to stick with it until I find evidence that shows differently. Okay? Well, family, I want to share with you some evidence this evening that Yahuah led me to. Um, I want to share it with you, and I want us to analyze that evidence. Some of it is going to blow your mind, I believe. Some of it is going to shock you, surprise you. Well, maybe it won't. After all, we know who we're dealing with. Okay? But nonetheless, even when you know that a person is a liar, sometimes the extent to which they go in lying can still shock you, even when you know that someone is a liar. And that might be what our experience is this evening as we look at the evidence that I'm about to present to you concerning the order of days. Okay? Keep this in mind, family. And I'm going to come back to this again. Keep this in mind. And I'm going to ask this question as we prepare to begin this evening. Keep this in mind, though. The scriptures tells us that the scriptures call um, the scriptures call the set apart times of Yahuah. What the scriptures call them muadim, or appointed times. Okay, muadim or appointed times. Appointed times. That's a very important word. Appointed. Appointed times. Okay. Now I've asked this question in the room before, that if something is appointed, what does that tell us? If something is appointed, there must be an appointment, right? If you have an appointed time, another way of saying it then is that you have an appointment. And every appointment has a fixed time and a fixed date. Is that right? Every appointment has a fixed time and a fixed date. That's right, family? I'm going to need your help this evening. Right? Every appointment has a fixed time and a fixed date. I believe that's right. Thank you, family. Tuda. Every appointment has a fixed time and a fixed date. So if you have a doctor's appointment, the very fact that you have a doctor's appointment, it means then that you have a time that you're going to see the doctor. You also have a date. You have a date and a time, and there is also a place associated with that appointment. Okay? That's the nature of every appointment. Every appointment has three things in common. Every appointment has three things in common. What are the three? Date, time, and place. Okay? Every appointment has three things in common. I want to emphasize this now. Every appointment has three things in common: date, time, and place. You will not find an appointment that does not have a date but has a time. You will not find an appointment that has a place but is missing date and time. If you're missing one of the three, then you do not have an appointment. Your appointment is incomplete. You see, in order for there to be an appointment, there must be a date, time, and place. Okay? Keep that in mind. All right. Let's ask this other question. Now, all of the set apart times of Yahuah are fixed. All the set apart times of Yahuah are fixed. The scriptures tells us that, family. And we have gone over that many times before, and we will, as time go on, we'll go back to that. For those who have not been here for those studies, we'll go back to that. Maybe not this evening, but at other times, we'll go back to it again. Okay? But all the set apart times, all, in other words, the very word appointment again and appointed tells us that it is fixed. Every appointment is fixed. It is fixed, which means it has a fixed time, it has a fixed date, it has a fixed place. So every appointment is fixed. Every appointment is fixed. Okay, let me ask you this, family. I'm going to ask you this question. We're getting to the details here, but I've got to lay the groundwork. I've got to get you thinking about something. Okay? Now, your people talk about their birthday. People talk about their birthday, right? Yeah, bear with me, Aki. Bear with me, Aki M. Harrison. I know that it sounds confusing, but we're going to go to the details here in a minute. I just want to get you thinking for a moment here, but we're going to go to the historical detail here in a minute. So bear with me for a moment. But let me ask you this question. So we're talking about appointments and appointed, and we say that every appointment is fixed, right? Okay, we all have birthdays, what we call birthdays. And the way that we mark our birthdays, we mark them on the Gregorian calendar. Is that right? The way we mark our birthdays is that we mark them on the Gregorian calendar. Is that right, family? We all mark our birthdays by the Gregorian calendar, right? And the day of the year, the date of the year that we mark as our birthday, we say that this is our birthday. We say that this is our birthday. But have you ever noticed that the day that you call your birthday changes from year to year? Have you noticed that it changes every year? It changes every year. So what does that mean? It means then that it's not your birthday. It means that it's not your birthday. What is it? It's your birth date, but it's not your birthday. That's important now. That's important. That's very important. Okay? And there is a reason why it changes. There is a reason why it changes. There is a reason why it changes. It doesn't have to change, but there is a reason why it changes. Yes, I understand that key. I understand that key, M. Harrison. I understand. Me neither. You know, I don't do the whole birthday thing. You see what I'm saying? I praise Yahuah for another year, but I don't get into it like that. I just use that as an example because I think that a lot of us can relate to that. If I use it, then a lot of us can see that and understand the point that I'm trying to get across. Okay? Now, what is so what we call our birthday is actually not our birthday. It's our birth date. And the reason why it is not our birthday but our birth date is because it changes from year to year. Now the question is, does it have to change? No. Your birthday does not change. Your birthday, if you're using a correct calendar, it does not change. The day that you were born was an appointed day. Is that right? The day that you were born is an appointed day. Is that right? Is that right, family? The day that you were born is an appointed day. Do you believe that Yahuah appointed the day of your birth as he does appoint the day of your death? The day that you were born is an appointed day. And what did I say about appointed times? I said, as Yahuwah's word tells us, that appointed times are fixed times, right? Appointed times are fixed times. Fixed times does not change. Fixed times does not move. Anything that is fixed does not move. So the question is then, why do our so-called birthdays move? You know why? It moves because there's a there's a problem with the calendar that we use. There is a problem with the calendar that we use. Okay, family, now let me ask you this. So the Shabbat is a fixed time, right? Because it is an appointed time. Okay? The Shabbat is a fixed time, right? Because it is an appointed time. Let me ask you this question now. The Shabbat is a fixed time because it is an appointed time. But Saturdays on the calendar that we use, are Saturdays fixed on the calendar? Have you ever looked at a calendar over the span of a year and noticed the movement of the days on the calendar? Every day on the calendar moves, including Saturday. Just like your birthday moves, Saturday moves. You following me? You following me here, family? Now we're gonna go deeper here. I just want to lay some basic foundational stuff now, okay? Because it might get a little heavy, but it will be, the truth sets us free, okay? So it will be freeing, okay? So every day on the calendar moves. So when we're determining when the fixed day is, we're actually looking at a moving calendar. You see what I'm saying? When we are determining a fixed day, we're trying to determine a fixed day by a moving calendar. You see? When we're trying to determine a fixed day, but we're trying to determine a fixed day by a calendar that never sits still, where the days never stay still. We're trying to determine a fixed day on a moving calendar. You see, the problem with that is, you know what they say about a moving target, right? It's hard to hit a moving target. It is difficult to hit a moving target. So if the Shabbat is your target and it is forever moving, what you're going to find yourself when you're trying to hit a moving target, you're going to find yourself hitting and missing. You're going to hit and miss. You see, it's difficult to hit a moving target. So what I want you to understand here, if we just consider this from the aspect of our quote-unquote birthdays, or even the order of the days, the way the days move on the calendar, then that in itself tells us that there is a problem with the thing that we're using. Because whether we realize it or not, we're using their calendar as a guidepost, whether we realize it or not. Sometimes it don't click, family. Sometimes we say, no, we're not. We're going by Yahuah's calendar. And we don't realize that we're actually contradicting ourselves. Because even though we say we're going by Yahuah's calendar, yet somehow we're tracking our days by their calendar. You see? And so we do it because it's been engraven in us. We do it because we have inherited many great lies. And those lies have been engraven in us, you see? And so they go deep. Well, family, this evening, I want to share with you information from the horse's mouth. I want to share with you information from the horse's mouth. And as we go over this information, if there's anything that I read that you need me to stop and clarify, elaborate on it more clearly, please, by all means, let me know. You see? Yes, absolutely, Aki Dani Al. And that's what our people have got to come to understand. That's what Yashar have got to come to understand. Listen, family, I'm going to say this. For several years now, I've been teaching and trying to get our people to understand that according to Yahuah's word, his word says that when we are driven into captivity, that there are a few things that he would do. That he would strip us of our heritage, which includes stripping us of our language, stripping us of our calendar, okay? Stripping us of the feast. So you have a lot of people running around, patting themselves on the shoulder, boasting about how much they keep the feast. And according to Yahuah's word, it's actually impossible to keep the feast in captivity. And according to Yahuah's word, it's actually disobedience to keep the feast in captivity. After all, it is impossible to keep the feast in captivity. Why? Because the feasts are appointed times. And what is it about appointed times again? Every appointed time, every appointed thing has a time, as a fixed time, a fixed place, and a fixed day. Every appointed thing has a fixed time, a fixed place, and a fixed day. All right? Okay? Now, don't worry. We're going to go deeper. We're going to go deeper. All right? Don't mean to confuse anyone. Just bear with me. Okay? We're going to come back to Yahuah's calendar in a while. But first, we got to take a look at the Gregorian calendar. Okay? And as we look at the Gregorian calendar and the history of the Gregorian calendar this evening, your closest marker, the closest thing that you have to examine it against is going to be the weekly Shabbat. Okay, so that's going to be very telling. That's the first thing that's going to come to mind. That's the first question that is going to arise. Okay, so I'm going to put on the screen. The information that I'm about to share with you. Okay, I know we have questions, family. Bear with me. We're gonna come to them. Okay, I'm gonna make this big so everybody can read it. Okay, I'm gonna make this big so everyone can read it. What you're seeing on your screen right now is bear with me. You're not seeing it yet on YouTube. What you're seeing on your screen right now is literally an ancient Roman calendar. Not the most ancient, okay? But it is an ancient Roman calendar. The calendar that we currently use, that calendar is known as the Gregorian calendar. So let's do a little bit of quizzing to make this exciting as we go here, family. Okay, we're gonna do a little bit of quiz. Why is it called the Gregorian calendar? Why is it? Are you seeing it now on YouTube, family? The calendar that we now use in our captivity, it's called the Gregorian calendar. That's right, because it was named after Pope Gregory. It was named after Pope Gregory. Okay, let me ask another quiz question. Who was responsible for the development of calendars? In the Roman government, who was responsible for the development of calendars? The Roman government, while Rome really ruled the world and was the superpower, who was responsible for the development of calendars? 1 second. Let me see. No, don't. The name doesn't ring a bell. Doesn't ring a bell, Akut. All right, let me go back to Fuse. Yes, the Catholic Church, but more pronouncedly the Pope. More pronouncedly the Pope. Great, great. Akimat at Yahoo bring up something else, which is something we're going to go back to. Now, before the Pope, it was the Caesars. By the way, we all know that Caesar is not the name of a person, right? Caesar is not the name of a person, just like Pharaoh is not the name of a person. It's the title of the office, right? So before the Pope, it was the Caesars who were responsible for developing calendars. Okay, before the Pope, it was the Caesars that were responsible for developing calendars. As you're going to see this evening, different popes and different Caesars manipulated the calendar to fit their agendas. Okay? Different popes and different Caesars manipulated the calendar to fit their agendas. So, you see the American system of government, how the president serves for 4 years and then there is a new election. Well, the American system of government borrowed its idea of terms from the Greeks and the Romans. Okay? They modeled it after the Romans. Okay? Now, what the Romans used to do and what the Caesars used to do, because they were the ones responsible for the upkeep of the calendar, they would mess with the calendar when they wanted more days in office. When they wanted more time in office, they would mess with the calendar. Okay? So they manipulated the calendar to give them more time in office. You know what happens as a result of that? Things get out of whack. Things get out of whack. And guess what? You know what's happening? The same wacky calendar is the same thing we're basing our 7th day on. Okay, now we're gonna look at some serious evidence here this evening. So hang tight and let's get in it. Yeah. Yes. Yes, Aki. Okay, so let's get to it. All right. So we're looking at the history of the ancient Roman calendars. We're looking at the history of ancient Roman calendars. That's what we're looking at this evening. Okay? Well, the image that you're seeing on your screen is actually an image of one of the ancient Roman calendars. It is the calendar that Gregory used to formulate his calendar. But there were calendars before this calendar, and those calendars were wacky themselves. Okay, but let's let history speak. I'm reading this information from the website crystallinks.com/Rome calendar. Okay, and so this is not a religious website in any way. It's a historical site. Okay, now as we go on, again, I'm going to explain certain things, and if there are questions, let me know if you have questions about anything I read. Okay. Fasti Antiatus Maiores, painting of the Roman calendar about 60 BC. Now they're going to say BC. I will say BCE instead of BC. Let me explain why that is. Because if I say BC, then what I'm doing is I'm giving honor to Christos. Okay, so I'm not going to say BC. I will say BCE, and I will say where they say AD, I will say CE. Okay, so where they say BC, I will say BCE. And where they say AD, I will say CE. Now, what does that mean? BCE, okay, BC means before Christ. Now, we know who Christ is. Christ is an idol. I'm not going to give esteem to the idol. So, what I will say is BCE, before the common era. BCE, before the common era. AD means in the year of our Lord. Again, we don't give esteem to Baal, so I will say common era. So I will either say BCE, before the common era, or CE, common era. Speaking about, this time period, if we're going by what they say from the year of 1 till now, 2016. CE, common era. Okay? So I just want to make that clear as we go on. Now, so what I'm reading here now, it's telling you what this image is. And the name of it is Fasti Antiatus Maiores, painting of the Roman calendar about 60 BCE. About 60 BCE, 60 years before the Common Era, before the Julian Reform. So this calendar that you're looking at existed before the Julian Reform. Okay? That's in reference to Julius Caesar, because Julius Caesar created a calendar also called the Julian calendar. Now observe, enlarged, that it contains the months quintilis, or the Greek QVI, and sextilis, sex, and displays the intercalary month, inter, as at the far right hand column. Okay, so it's describing the notations on the calendar, which you cannot see clearly because it's not enlarged enough, but that's what this is about up here. Okay, now let's get down to the meat of it all. The Roman calendar changed its form several times in the time between the foundation of Rome and the fall of the Roman emperor. I'm going to read that again. The Roman calendar changed its form several times in the time between the foundation of Rome and the fall of the Roman emperor. This article generally discusses the early Roman or pre-Julian calendars. The calendar used after 46 BCE is discussed under the Julian calendar. In order to keep the calendar year roughly aligned with the solar year, a leap month of 27 days, the mensis intercalaris, sometimes also known as Mercedonius or Mercedinus, was added from time to time at the end of February, which was shortened to 23 or 24 days. The resulting year was either 377 or 378 days long. All right, I got to stop and make some things clear. So what this is saying is that there was a point where each year had sometimes 377 days or 378 days. There was a point with the Roman calendar where some years had 377 days and other years had 378 days. That's big. How many days are in the Roman calendar year now, family? How many days are in the Roman calendar year? 365. To be exact, 365 and a quarter. Now, that's a big difference now from 377 or 378. Is that right? That's a big difference from 377 or 378. That's a great big difference. As a matter of fact, the month of February, I've seen a drastic change through the years. Because there was a time when the month of yes, a leap year would have 366. That's right, Akut. Now, there was a time when February, the month of February, would have 23 days and sometimes 24 days, right? There was a time when the month of February would have sometimes 23 days or 24 days. Today, the shortest month of February has 28 days and the longest month of February has 29 days. Is that right? Am I right with that one, Mashpaka? Right? So that's a big difference. Okay, big difference. The question is, how has that affected us over the years? Okay, how does it affect our understanding and our counting of days? Okay, that's what we're trying to find out. Okay, so let's continue. Okay, so in order to keep the calendar year roughly aligned with the solar year, a leap month of 27 days, the mensis intercalaris, sometimes also known as Mercedanius or Mercedinus, was added from time to time at the end of February, which was shortened to 20 which was shortened to 23 or 24 days. The resulting year was either 377 or 378 days long. The decision to insert the intercalary month and its placement was the responsibility of the Pontifex Maximus. Okay, question. Who is the Pontifex Maximus? Who is the Pontifex Maximus? The Pope. That's right. The Pontifex Maximus is the Pope. That's a title for the Pope. The Pontifex Maximus. Okay, he is the Pope. That's the Pope. When we see Pontifex Maximus, that is the Pope. Okay, all right. Let's continue. So the Pope was responsible. Let me read that again. The decision to insert the intercalary month and its placement was the responsibility of the Pope. On average, this happened roughly in alternate years. The system of aligning the year through intercalary months broke down at least twice. Very important, you hear that? So the system of aligning the year through intercalary months broke down at least twice. In other words, what they're saying is twice, at least 2 times, they lost track of where they were in a year. At least 2 times they lost track of what day it was. You follow? What they're saying is, in Roman history, and they're going to tell you what 2 times that was. At least 2 times they lost track of what day it was. They woke up one morning and they said, hold up, what day is today? Is it Monday? Tuesday? Wednesday? You know what? Let's call it Thursday. Yeah, we'll just decide that today is Thursday. Okay? And this happened at least twice. They lost track of the days at least twice. And you're going to see reasons. You're going to see the reasons why they lost track. And then they got back up on their horse and say, okay, let's start over. We're going to drop the calendar again and we're going to call this day Thursday. And we'll just keep on from there, whatever. I'm just using Thursday to, yeah. But, okay. Question again is, where does that leave us? Where does that leave us? Okay, keep that in mind, Nell. Keep that in mind. What you're beginning to see, family, is that we know that Yahuah numbered the days and he named them day 1 through 7. You know what the Romans did? They even had an 8-day calendar. They didn't stop at 7. They even had an 8-day calendar. And then they scratched that out after many, many years. Several hundred years, 1,000 maybe. And then they start over again because they started it with the Greeks, you see, while they were Greeks. Okay. Now, All right. So we're, but the thing is, where does that leave us? Okay. So let's continue. Now, so it was up to the Pope to keep that in order, but it broke down, the order broke down at least twice. Now, the first time was during and after the Second Punic War. Y'all have probably heard about the Punic War. The first time that order broke down was during the war. And the reason why it broke down during the war was because they were so busy fighting, nobody was keeping track of the calendar. Nobody was updating the calendar day by day. And so during the war, they lost track of what day it was. So after the war, they decided, okay, let's get back to the calendar, and we're just going to randomly choose a day. Okay? And then they went from there. All right? That leaves a lot of question marks for us as concerning the order of the days. Okay? All right, let's continue. Okay, so the first time was during and after the Second Punic War. It led to the reform of the Lex Acilia in 191 BCE. It led to the reform of the Lex Acilia in 191 BCE. Now, the Lex Acilia is another one of their calendars where they reformed it after the war. Okay, that's basically them getting up and determining, okay, we're going to decide that this is the day it is, and we go from there. The details of this reform are unclear, but it appears to have successfully regulated intercalation for over a century. So they thought about it. They determined, we're going to start now saying that this is so-and-so day, and we're also going to make our system of intercalation a little bit better. And that lasted for over a century. That calendar, the Lex Acilia, lasted for over a century, over 100 years. The second breakdown was in the middle of the first century BCE. So the second breakdown was in the middle of the first century BCE. This breakdown may have been related to the increasingly chaotic and adversarial nature of Roman politics at the time. The position of the Pontifex Maximus, the Pope, was not a full-time job. Okay, the position at that time of the Pope was not a full-time job. It was held by a member of the Roman elite who would almost invariably be involved in the machinations of Roman politics. In other words, the person, the elite who was over the keeping up with the calendar, he would be so involved with politics that he didn't always do a good job keeping up with the calendar. So then it led to another breakdown in the calendar. Okay? Now, because a Roman calendar year defined the term of office of elected Roman magistrates. Let me read that again. Because a Roman calendar year defined the term of office of elected Roman magistrates, such as the U.S. president, 4 years. Because a Roman calendar year defined the term of office of elected Roman magistrates, a Pontifex Maximus, the Pope, a Pope would have reason to lengthen a year in which he or his allies were in power, or not lengthen a year in which his political opponents held office. It was only after Julius Caesar, who had been Pontifex Maximus, Pope Julius Caesar, for some years, seized absolute power, that the calendar was overhauled, with the result being the Julian calendar. Days of the week. Very interesting subject. The Roman Republic, like the Etruscans, used a market week of 8 days, marked as A to H in the calendar above. A market was held on the 8th day. For the Romans, who counted inclusively, this was every 9th day. Hence, the market became called Nundine, the 9th-day market, okay, which is really the 8th day. Since the length of the year was not a multiple of 8 days, the letter for the market day, known as a nundinal letter, changed every year. For example, if the current letter for market days was A, and the year was 355 days long, then the letter for the next year would be F. The market cycle was a fundamental rhythm of daily life, and the market day was the day that country people would come to the city. For this reason, a law was passed in 287 BCE, the Lex Hortensia, that forbade the holding of meetings of the comitia, for example, to hold elections on market days, but permitted the holding of legal actions. In the late Republic, a superstition arose that it was unlucky to start the year with a market day. For the market day to fall on 1st January with a letter A, and the pontiffs who regulated the calendar took steps to avoid it. So a superstition arose that by no means, it's bad luck, they say, for the market day to start on January 1st. So we can't do that. And the way their system of lettering for the letter A to fall on January 1st. So then they did another change again to their calendar. Okay? Because the market cycle was absolutely fixed at 8 days under the Republic, information about the dates of market days is one of the most important tools we have for working out the Julian equivalent of a Roman date in the pre-Julian calendar. In the early emperor, the Roman market day was occasionally changed. The details of this are not clear, but one likely explanation is that it would be moved by one day if it fell on the same day as the festival of Refugium, an event that could occur every other Julian leap year. When this happened, the market day would be moved to the next day, which was the bisextile leap day. The modern 7-day week came into use during the early imperial period after the Julian calendar came into effect, apparently stimulated by immigration from the Roman East. For a while, it coexisted alongside the old 8-day nundinal cycle, and fasti are known which show both cycles. So there are fasti calendars known that shows both cycles being used side by side. It was finally given official status by Constantine in 321. So the 7-day cycle was finally given official status by Constantine in 321 CE, Common Era. The days of the week were dedicated to the 7 planets. They were, note the similarities of some of the days with French and Spanish and other Romans languages. So they were Sunday, Dies Solis, day of the sun. Monday, Dies Lunae, day of the moon. Tuesday, Dies Martis, day of Mars. Wednesday, Dies Mercury, day of Mercury. Thursday, Dies Iovis, day of Jupiter. Friday, Dies Veneris, day of Venus. Saturday, Dies Saturni, day of Saturn. Character of the day, an aspect of the Roman character of the day, an aspect of the Roman calendar that is quite unfamiliar to us in that each day had a character which was marked in the fasti. The most important of these were Dies Fasti, marked by an F, on which legal matters could normally be heard, Dies Nefasti, marked by an N, on which they could not, and Dies Commercialis, marked by a C, on which meetings of the public assemblies known as comitia were permitted, subject to other constraints such as the lex hortensia. A few days had a different character. The lex hortensia, if you remember, that's the day that happens every leap year, that special feast they would have. A few days had a half of a day only, had a different character. Example, and Dr. Caesar, or perhaps endocio, exitio, nefas, a day in which legal actions were permitted on half of the day only, and NP, which were public holidays. Converting pre-Julian dates. Finding the Julian equivalent of a Roman date can be quite tricky. Now, why is that important? This is important. The question is, why is it important? I'm going to read this again. Finding the Julian equivalent of a Roman date can be quite tricky. Okay, let me stop there for 1 second and ask a couple of questions. It says finding the Julian equivalent of a Roman date can be quite tricky. Finding the Julian equivalent of a Roman date can be quite tricky. Okay, all right. Let me ask you again, family. The Julian or the Roman calendar. So you had an instant where you had the Roman calendar, then it was superimposed by the Julian calendar, and now we're back to the Roman calendar, right? But they say, now if you're going to change calendars, in order for you to keep, if you're interested in keeping the order of the days right, then you need to be able to properly, if you're changing calendars, you need to be able to properly carry over the days from one calendar to the next calendar flawlessly so that you don't change the order of the days. Would that be right? You would think so, right, family? If you're changing calendars, then it's important to carry over the order of the days to the new calendar without interruption or interference. But they said that trying to align the Julian calendar with the Roman calendar can be quite tricky. As a matter of fact, almost impossible. Okay? If not impossible. I'd say impossible. They give them the benefit of a doubt. But I'd say it's impossible because there have been so many changes and so many times when they fail to keep track of the calendar and then decide to start all over again. So really it becomes impossible. It becomes totally impossible. They say quite tricky. I don't say quite tricky. I say impossible. Okay? Now all of that is important to us. Okay? Because we're going by what they tell us the seventh day is. They say the seventh day is Saturday. But the reality is they don't even know when the seventh day is anymore. They lost track of the day. They lost track of the seventh day a long time ago. You see, they lost track of the order of the days a long time ago. Okay? Now, let's continue. So finding the Julian equivalent of a Roman date can be quite tricky. Even early Julian dates before the leap year cycle was stabilized, they had an issue where they had to figure a way how to stabilize dates, okay? And even before they were able to stabilize the dates, so finding the Julian equivalent of a Roman date can be quite tricky. Even early Julian dates before the leap year cycle was stabilized are not quite what they appear to be. For example, it is well known that Julius Caesar was assassinated on the Ides of March in 44 BCE. And this is usually converted to 15 March 44 BCE. While he was indeed assassinated on the 15th day of the Roman month Martius, the equivalent date on the modern Julian calendar is probably 14 March 44 BCE. So even the date when Julius Caesar was assassinated, which is the Ides of March, on one calendar it says 15th of March. On the other calendar it says the 14th of March. The calendars don't even agree on the date of the assassination, because basically what it's calling it's name it the Ides of March. So now there's confusion as to when really is the Ides of March. Is it the 14th of March or is it the 15th of March? You see what I'm saying? Now, finding the exact Julian equivalent of a pre-Julian date is much harder. Let me read that again. Finding the exact Julian equivalent of a pre-Julian date is much harder. So what they're saying is, listen, so you have two Julian calendars at work, okay? You have the modern Julian calendar and then you have the older Julian calendar, okay? Because basically what they did was they revived the Julian calendar. So remember now, before the Julian calendar, you had a Roman calendar. Then Pope Julius came in, Julius Caesar came in, and he created a calendar. And that calendar lasted 100 years. And then it was taken, a Roman calendar was again put in place. Then after that Roman calendar was again put in place, then they came up with they revived the Julian calendar. But the problem is that the Julian calendar, both Julian calendars don't agree with each other, and they don't match the Roman calendars either. Okay, so there's mass confusion, you see. So he says finding the exact Julian equivalent of a pre-Julian date is much harder. Since we have an essentially complete list of the consuls, it is not difficult to find the Julian year that generally corresponds to a pre-Julian year. However, our sources very rarely tell us which years were regular, which were intercalary, and how long an intercalary year was. For this reason, pre-Julian dates can be very misleading. We do have a number of clues to help us. First, we know when the Julian calendar began, although there is some argument about it. So, I say we do know when the Julian calendar began, even though there is some argument about it. We have detailed sources for the previous decade or so, mostly in the letters and speeches of Cicero. Combining these with what we know about how the calendar worked, especially the nundinal cycle, we can accurately convert Roman dates after 58 BCE now. We can accurately convert Roman dates after 58 BCE. Nothing before 58 BC we can accurately convert. But after 58 BC, so all of the confusion that took place before 58 BCE, it's impossible for us to hash that out. But after 58 BCE, we can accurately convert Roman dates after 58 BCE. Also, the histories of Livy give us exact Roman dates for two eclipses in 190 BCE and 168 BCE, and we have a few loose synchronisms to dates in other calendars which help to give rough and sometimes exact solutions for the intervening period. Before 190 BCE, the alignment between the Roman and Julian years is determined by clues such as the dates of harvests mentioned in the sources. This allows us to estimate approximate Julian equivalents of Roman dates back to the start of the first dates to Julian dates in Let me read that again. This allows us to estimate approximate Julian equivalents of Roman dates back to the start of the First Punic War in 264 BCE. However, the number of years before 45 BCE for which we can accurately and precisely convert Roman dates to Julian dates is very small. All right, let's continue. The Julian calendar. The Julian calendar was introduced in 46 BCE by Julius Caesar and took force in 45 BCE. 709 Ab Urbe Condita. That's the source. It was chosen after consultation with the Alexandrian astronomer Sosigenus and was probably designed to approximate the tropical year, known at least since Hipparchus. Now, what is the tropical year? The tropical year is the length of time that the sun takes to travel from one equinox back to the mark of the equinox, or from one solstice back to its beginning. Okay, so the tropical year, another way of saying the tropical year is saying the solar year. Okay, the amount of time that the sun takes to make a complete rotation or revolution. Okay, now I'm just reading the board. Now, yes, the solar restart. Okay. Now, so let me go back to that again. So the Julian calendar was introduced in 46 BCE by Julius Caesar and took force in 45 BCE. It was chosen after the consultation with the Alexandrian astronomer Sosigenus and was probably designed to approximate the tropical year, known at least since Hipparchus. It has a regular year of 365 days divided into 12 months, and a leap day is added to February every 4 years. So this is the Julian calendar. Now, this is the modern Julian calendar. Okay, well, the first Julian calendar and then the modern, they're based off of each other, but when you come to matching up exact dates, that's where the problems come in. But Pope Julius Caesar is who now gave us the 365-day cycle. Now, if you talk to Christians, Christians will tell you that God gave us 365 days in a year. The Christian will tell you that God gave us 365 days, 365 and a quarter days, and in a leap year, he gave us 366 days. The scriptures, however, does not say that. The scriptures tells us that Yahuah gave us 364 days in a year. Okay? Not 365, not 365 and a quarter, and not 366. So who gave us 365 and 365 and a quarter and 366? I will tell you who. Pope Julius Caesar and Pope Gregory. It was Pope Gregory that added the quarter. You see. It was the Lord. Yes. Okay? So it was man that gave us those numbers. Now, all right, so now, hence the Julian year is on average 365 and a quarter days long. The Julian calendar remained in use into the 20th century in some countries and is still used by many national Orthodox churches. However, too many leap days are added with respect to the astronomical seasons on this scheme. Okay? All right, so there's a problem even with the 365 and a quarter. On average, the astronomical solstices and the equinoxes advance by about 11 minutes per year against the Julian year. So watch this. On average, the astronomical solstices and equinoxes advance by about 11 minutes per year against the Julian year, causing the calendar to gain a day about every 134 years. While Hipparchus and presumably Sosigenus were aware of the discrepancy, Although not of its correct value, it was evidently felt to be of little importance. However, it accumulated significantly over time and eventually led to the reform of 1582, which replaced the Julian calendar with the more accurate Gregorian calendar. More accurate. The notation Old Style OS is sometimes used to indicate a date in the Julian calendar as opposed to New Style, which indicates a date in the Gregorian calendar. This notation is used when there might otherwise be confusion about which date is found in a text. So when people are writing using different calendars, they'll use OS or NS, Old Style or New Style, Julian or Gregory. The ordinary year in the previous Roman calendar consisted of 12 months for a total of 355 days. In addition, a 27-day intercalary month, the mensis intercalaris, was sometimes inserted between February and March. This intercalary month was formed by inserting 22 days after the first 23 or 24 days of February, the last 5 days of February becoming the last 5 days of intercalaris. The net effect was to add 22 or 23 days to the year, forming an intercalary year of 377 or 378 days. They had some funky math that went on. So what happened is, at certain points, they would add 23 or 24 days to the 355, and that's where you get the 377 or 378 days in a year. Man, what great disparity. Okay? Now, according to the later writers, Censorinus and Macrobius, the ideal intercalary cycle consisted of ordinary years of 355 days, alternating with intercalary years alternately 377 and 378 days long. On this system, the average Roman year would have had 366 and a quarter days over 4 years, giving it an average drift of 1 day per year relative to any solstice or equinox. Now watch that. That's important, because even on that system, it still drifted from the equinox or the solstice by a day. By the way, let me bring that up because it's still a problem to this very day. So the day of the actual equinox is not the day that they tell you that it's the actual equinox. So I don't want to confuse you. But if you look at certain calendars, they'll tell you that the equinox is, they'll say it's March 21st or whatever. Right? But in reality, it's not March 21st. Why? Because their calendar drifts. It does not line up with the equinoxes. Okay? In other words, a year is supposed to be, because it's fixed, everything happens on the same day all the time. Because it is fixed, everything happens on the same day all the time. Yahuah's timepiece, it's like clockwork. Everything falls in place at the same time, on the same day, all the time. However, with their messed up calendar, nothing happens at the same time all the time. It is always changing. It is always moving. It is always drifting. And so they're always making adjustments. So sometimes they used to add a whole 23 or 24 days, then they minus 23 or 24 days, and then now, they add a day or subtract a day or whatever the case may be. You see, but it's all confusion, you see. But why is there all of this confusion? Because they have put themselves in the place of the Creator. They have determined that it is up to them to determine everything, you see. And Yahuah tells us that they would seek to change times and laws just to show their might, or what they think is might, you see. But in the process, it can leave us in confusion. Okay? Now, let's continue. I'm going to keep reading. We still have a very important point in this to show you, family. Now, according to the later writers, okay, we read that already. All right, let's see where I want to pick up from here. All right, let me continue. According to the later writers, Censorinus and Macrobius, the ideal intercalary cycle consisted of ordinary years of 355 days, alternating with intercalary years, alternately 377 and 378 days long. On this system, the average Roman year would have had 366 and a quarter days over 4 years, giving it an average drift of 1 day per year relative to any solstice or equinox. Macrobius describes a further refinement wherein for 8 years out of 24, there were only 3 intercalary years, each of 377 days. This refinement averages the length of the year to 365 and a quarter days over 24 years. In practice, intercalations did not occur schematically, according to these ideal systems, but were determined by the pontifices. Okay, the popes determined when they were going to do these intercalations. So far as can be determined from the historical evidence, they were much less regular than these ideal schemes suggest. So they created a system that says in 24 years we're going to have this many intercalations. But the popes, they didn't even go by that system. They did their own thing. That further messes up some more. In practice, intercalations did not occur schematically according to these ideal systems, but were determined by the pontifices, by the popes. They usually occurred every second or third year, but were sometimes omitted or much longer, and occasionally occurred in 2 consecutive years. So they did whatever they wanted to do. Where does that leave us today? If managed correctly, this system allowed the Roman year on average to stay roughly aligned to a tropical year. However, if too many intercalations were omitted, as happened after the Second Punic War and during the Civil Wars, the calendar would drift rapidly out of alignment with the tropical year. Moreover, since intercalations were often determined quite late, the average Roman citizen often did not know the date, particularly if he were some distance from the city. For these reasons, the last years of the pre-Julian calendar were later known as years of confusion. The problems became particularly acute during the years of Julius Caesar's pontificate before the Reform, 63 to 46 BCE, when there were only 5 intercalary months, whereas there should have been 8 and none at all during the 5 Roman years before 46 BCE. Total confusion. The reform was intended to correct this problem permanently by creating a calendar that remained aligned to the sun without any human intervention. Leap years. Despite the new calendar being much simpler than the Roman calendar, the pontifices apparently misunderstood the algorithm. They added a leap day every 3 years instead of every 4 years. According to Macrobius, the error was the result of counting inclusively, so that the 4-year cycle was considered as including both the first and 4th years. This resulted in too many leap days. Caesar Augustus remedied this discrepancy by restoring the correct frequency after 36 years of this mistake. He also skipped several leap days in order to realign the year. The historic sequence of leap years, example years with leap day, in this period is not given explicitly by any ancient source, although the existence of the triennial leap year cycle is confirmed by an inscription that dates from 9 or 8 BCE. The chronologist Joseph Scaliger established in 1583 that the Augustan reform was instituted in 8 BCE and inferred that the sequence of leap years was 42, 39, 36, 33, 30, 27, 24, 21, 18, 15, 12, 9 BC, 88, 12, etc., etc. This proposal is still the most widely accepted solution, though it's nonsense. It has also sometimes been suggested that 45 BCE was a leap year. Other solutions have been proposed from time to time. Kepler proposed in 1614 that the correct sequence of leap years was 43, 40, 37, 34, 31, 28, 25, 22, 19, 16, 13, 10 BC, 88, 12, etc. Nonsense. They're just guessing. Okay, it's no way you can determine when things have been made such a mess of. In 1883, the German chronologist Matsat proposed 44, 41, 38, 35, 33, 29, 26, 28, 20, 17, 14, 11 BCE, 8, CE4, CE8, CE12, etc., based on a passage in Dio Cassius that mentions a leap day in 41 BCE that was said to be contrary to Caesar's rule. In the 1960s, Rodkey argued the reform was actually instituted when Augustus became Pontifex Maximus in 12 BCE, suggesting the sequence 45, 42, 39, 36, 33, 30, 27, 24, 21, 18, 15, 12 BCE, CE4, CE8, CE12, etc. All nonsense. In 1999, an Egyptian papyrus was published which gives an ephemeris table for 24 BCE with both Roman and Egyptian dates. From this, it can be shown that the most likely sequence was in fact 44, 41, 38, 35, 32, 29, 26, 23, 20, 17, 14, 11, 8 BCE, CE4, CE8, 12, etc. Very close to that proposed by Matsat. None of them was right anyway, and even the source that they have is still highly questionable. After all, impossible, because so much have been missed over the centuries. This sequence shows that the standard Julian leap year sequence began in CE4, the 12th year of the Augustan reform. Also under this sequence, the actual Roman year coincided with the proleptic Julian year between 32 and 26. This suggests that one aim of the realignment portion of the Augustan reform was to ensure that key dates of his career, notably the fall of Alexandria on 1st August 30 BCE, were unaffected by his correction. So he made corrections to preserve his legacy, forget everything else. Roman dates before 32 BCE were typically a day or, watch this now, Roman dates before 32 BCE were typically a day or two before the day with the same Julian date. So 1st January in the Roman calendar of the first year of the Julian reform actually fell on 31st December 46 BCE, Julian date. A curious effect of this is that Caesar's assassination on the Ides of March, 15th day of March in 44 BCE, fell on 14th March 44 BCE in the Julian calendar. So between the calendars there was a 2-day difference when it shouldn't be any difference whatsoever, but there seemed to be a 2-day difference. And that's just one inconsistency. Forget all of the other times that they stop counting and then decide, okay, let's start over and let's determine that this day is Saturday, that day is Sunday, so on and so forth. Family, now I'm going to read one more and then I'm going to stop and then we can discuss this. Naming the months. Immediately after the Julian reform, the 12 months of the Roman calendar were named Ianarius, Februarius, Martius, Aprilis, Maius, Junius, Quintilis, Sextilis, September, October, November, and December, just as they were before the reform. Their lengths were set to their modern values. The old intercalary month, the mensis intercalaris, was abolished and replaced with a single intercalary day at the same point. Example, 5 days before the end of Februarius. The first month of the year continued to be Uranus January, as it had been since 153 BCE. So January have only been known to be the beginning of the year since Rome put that in effect in 153 BCE. The Romans later renamed months after Caesar and Augustus, renaming Quintilis, originally the 5th month, with March, month 1, as Helios, July, in 44 BCE, and Sextilis, 6th month, as August in 8 BCE, okay, or Augustus. So you see, even the months now, watch this now, even the order of the months they used to keep changing. So at one point, March was known as the 1st month. You see, July was known as the 6th month. Today it's known as the 7th month. Okay? Note that the letter J was not invented until the 17th century. Quintilis was renamed in honor of Caesar because it was the month of his birth. According to a see if I can pronounce this one, Senatus Consultum, quoted by Macrobius, Sextilis was renamed to honor Augustus because several of the most significant events in his rise to power, culminating in the fall of Alexandria, fell in that month. Other months were renamed by other emperors, but apparently none of the later changes survived their deaths. Caligula renamed September 7th month as Germanicus. Nero renamed Aprilis, April, as Neronius. May as Claudius, and Hunus, June, as Germanicus. And Domitian renamed September as Germanicus and October, 8th month, as Domitianus. At other times, September was also renamed as Antonius and Tacitus, and November, 9th month, was renamed Faustina and Romanus. Commodus was unique in renaming all 12 months after his own adopted names, January to December. Amazonius, Invictus, Felix, Pius, Lucius, Helius, Harellus, Commodus, Augustus, Hercules, Romanus, and Exuperatorus, whatever, much more lasting than the ephemeral month names of the post-Augustan Roman emperors, were names introduced by Charlemagne. He renamed all of the months agriculturally into Old High German. They were used until the 15th century, and with some modifications until the late 18th century in Germany and in the Netherlands, January to December, winter month, Hornug, spring, whatever, Lent month. I'm not going to try to pronounce all of them in their Slavic and German languages. And then they go into numbering the years. Basically, family, as we continue to read through this, if you see what it has revealed, is that no one actually knows the order of the days, because they have been forgotten many times because of wars, because of the selfishness of popes and rulers. They have been forgotten. I'm going to read one more. And this is the change from Julian to Gregorian. I'm going to read this one, then I'm going to stop. The Julian calendar was in general use in Europe from the times of the Roman Emperor until 1582, when Pope Gregory the 13th promulgated the Gregorian calendar, which was soon adopted by most Catholic countries. The Protestant countries followed later, and the countries of Eastern Europe even later. Great Britain had Thursday, 14 September 1752, followed by Wednesday, 2nd September 1752. You see that now. Watch that now. The Protestant countries followed later, and the countries of Eastern Europe even later. Watch this. Great Britain had Thursday, 14 September 1752, followed by Wednesday, 2nd September 1752. Oh, let me put this on the screen for you. Let me copy this and let me paste it in the room, because you might want to see this a little bit more up close and personal. I'm going to paste it in the room here on Fuse, and I'm going to paste it on YouTube. But you need to see this up close and personal. And let me just get it posted. Okay. Now, let's put it on YouTube. Okay. Now I'm going to read it again. It says, the Protestant countries followed later. Okay, this is after they are changing now over from Julian to Gregorian. The Protestant countries followed later. By the way, oh wait, let me finish reading. The Protestant countries followed later, and the countries of Eastern Europe even later. Great Britain had Thursday, 14th September 1752, follow Wednesday, 2nd September 1752. So what they did was they deducted how many days was that? 12 days. Okay. Sweden adopted. Now in that case they did not change the order of the days. Okay. They just knock off a number of days, but in that case they did not change the order of the days. All right. Sweden adopted the new style calendar in 1753, but also for a 12-year period starting in 1700 used a modified Julian calendar. Russia remained on the Julian calendar until after the Russian Revolution, which is thus called the October Revolution, but occurred in November according to the Gregorian calendar in 1917, while Greece continued to use it until 1923. So again, here you have a conflict between the Russian calendar and the Russian Julian calendar and the Gregorian calendar, because the Russian calendar said that it was October, the Gregorian calendar said that it was November. Okay? Although all Eastern European countries had adopted the Gregorian calendar on or before 1923, their national Eastern Orthodox churches had not. A revised Julian calendar was proposed during a synod in Constantinople in May of 1923, consisting of a solar part which was and will be identical to the Gregorian calendar until the year 2800, and a lunar part which calculated Easter astronomically at Jerusalem. All Orthodox churches refused to accept the lunar part, so almost all Orthodox churches continue to celebrate Easter according to the Julian calendar. The Finnish Orthodox Church uses the Gregorian Easter. The solar part was only accepted by some Orthodox churches, those of Constantinople, Alexandria, Antioch, Greece, Cyprus, Romania, Poland, Bulgaria in 1963, and the Orthodox Church in America, although some OCA parishes are permitted to use the Julian calendar. Nothing but a bunch of nonsense. Thus, these churches celebrate the Nativity on the same day that Western Christians do, 25 December Gregorian until 2800. The Orthodox churches of Jerusalem, Russia, Serbia, Georgia, Ukraine, and the Greek Old Calendarist continue to use the Julian calendar for their fixed dates. Thus, they celebrate the Nativity on 25th December Julian, 7 January Gregorian until 2100. So in Russia and places like that, you'll see some churches, we call it January 7th, but according to their calendar, it's December 25th. Okay? So what we call January 7th, for some of these churches, it's actually December 25th. So you see, the confusion continues, and the evidence of the confusion is with us to this very moment. So where that leaves us is, do we know that Saturday is in fact the seventh day? Is it possible for us to say with certainty that Saturday is in fact the seventh day? What the evidence shows is that it is impossible for us to say, for anybody to say, that Saturday is the seventh day. As a matter of fact, the evidence suggests that it is highly unlikely that Saturday is, in fact, the seventh day. But you know what? Nonetheless, whether or not Saturday is the seventh day, it doesn't. That in itself wouldn't even matter, because according to the scriptures, we shouldn't even be looking to their calendar to determine when the Sabbath actually is. So if we're looking to their calendar to determine when the Sabbath actually is, then we are already in trouble. Okay? What we are supposed to look to is Yahuah's calendar. Now, I will agree that currently, concerning the understanding of Yahuah's calendar, there is yet still some confusion. And that's a part of the curse that we're under. Okay? That's a part of the curse that we're under. And so there are things that Yahuah will yet have to make plain. He'll yet have to make clear to us. But what I can say to you, family, is based on the evidence that we cannot really and truly assuredly say by any stretch of the imagination that Saturday is actually the seventh day. That's something given to us by the Catholic Church and the Catholic Church alone, you see, and we have been following it. Now Yahuah tells us in the book of Daniel chapter 7 that they, Rome, that emperor, that he would seek to change times and laws, and he certainly has. Here's the thing about the Sabbath. The Sabbath should occur on the same day. I'm not talking about on the same date or the same day namesake. I'm talking about on the same day. The Sabbath should occur on the same day at all times, because it's fixed. Just like your birthday should occur on the same day every year. The Shabbat and every feast of Yahuah occurs on the same day every year. So, but if you try to use a Gregorian calendar, if you try to use a Roman calendar to follow that, you will be off every single time, because the calendar is wrong. It is a moving target, you see, and it's not fixed. As a matter of fact, they play with it however they want to play with it, as you see. Um, so that's uh, that's the evidence there is. So again, it goes back to this family, where we have our family, people of Yasharal. For example, we are a people in captivity, and Yahuah make it plain that captivity is not the place that He has appointed. But yet you have people of Yasharal who continue to beat people down who are in captivity, who maybe some people without they don't have any choice. Some people are forced to work on Saturdays. And some people will beat them down. How dare you do that? But come to find out, it is highly unlikely that Saturday ain't even Shabbat. But yet you're stumping somebody down. You see, family, we've got to understand what the scripture says about our condition as a dispersed people. Yes, we have a desire and a zeal to seek Yahuah and to serve Yahuah. And that desire and that zeal is what should drive us to truth rather than just being zealous without knowledge. Um, so I wanted to present that, and I'll share the link for anyone who want to, because it's a lot there. I want to share the link to anyone who wants to go and read this for yourself. And there are other sources out there that you can compare. I'm going to share this link, and I encourage you to go and to read it. But what I want you to know, family, is, and I'm not going to get into a study on Yahuwah's calendar tonight, and I've been doing that for quite some time, and I don't have all the answers yet, but I'm still seeking. Okay, but what I do know is that what we have been given is a lie. Okay, I'm going to share the evidence with you. Okay, now I want to open up the mic. Yes. So I'm going to open up the mic, family, to anyone who may want to come to the mic. If you have any comments or questions, by all means, I want to open up. I want to open the mic.
Aki.
Yes, go ahead, Aki.
Oh, I had my mic on, didn't even know it. But
Oh,
shalom, everyone.
shalom, shalom to you, Aki.
Yeah. You right. And we went over the study back in the book of Jubilee,
Mm-hmm.
Jubilee and everything, where it just spelled out everything. It just told everything because of our disobedience, how Yahuwah just would hand over everything that He has given to us, the Shabbats, the Torah, and everything into the hands of the heathens, and how they would just corrupt it and just mantle it and do as they will with it
Mm-hmm.
to this very day, and then they went into their own little dismay, as you just read. So I mean, it's right. We under the curse, so this is expected, and we we need to pay attention and not get caught up. I mean, we was just reading in Yahoo. Don't that we don't um what is it that don't be learn the ways of the heathen. Don't learn the
Mm-hmm.
ways of the heathen.
Mm-hmm.
And we just still kind of, some of us, we just caught up still looking at the heathen, trying to figure it out,
Yes,
and we shouldn't do that.
indeed, 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 Aki. So true, so true, so true. And the greatest challenge for us as a people, when you've been lied to your whole life, it's hard to really fathom that and accept that you've really been lied to the extent that you've been lied to. And it can be hard to turn away from what you have become so accustomed to. But that's the reality. Aki Delayahu, please go ahead, Aki. Do we still have you, Aki? Let me see if I can unmute your mic for you. Oh, there you go.
Shalom, shalom, shalom.
Shalom, Aki. Shalom.
Well, Aki, this has been one of them things that make you scratch your head and go, you know,
Yes, indeed.
um, and I'm a little victim, of not really ridiculing people, but really bolstering the fact that the Shabbat is Saturday and it's the seventh day, and now it's like, what really do we know?
Mm-hmm.
The adversary, the heathen, has came and changed everything up around us and shaken us up completely and completely covered our eyes. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like we don't really know up from down and down from up.
Mm-hmm.
But I can say though, our key, we are truth seekers and we seek the truth no matter if it hurt
Mm-hmm.
or whether it makes us feel good. The important part is that we establish the whole truth
Indeed.
and nothing but you know.
Indeed.
So but I got a question. What isn't there something that we should be able to go by to even navigate with the moon, Aki?
Yeah. So the what so in Barashit, for example, in Barashit, chapter 1, in the book of Jubileem, in the book of Hanuk, Yahuwah says that he gives us the moon, the sun, and the stars of Shamayim as a sign for times and seasons and laws, right? So Yahuwah's calendar is really in the heavens. Now, in the book of Jubileem, Jubilees, and in the book of Hanuk, it also tells us that what marks the times, the signs, are the 4 points of the year, right? The solstices and the equinoxes is what it tells us. It tells us that there are 364 days in a year, and if you go by, if you're going by that, it seemed likely that the Shabbat would fall around, probably, I don't have it totally nailed down, but it seemed likely that the Shabbat falls actually on what they would call Thursday, is more likely what the Shabbat would be on. But again, I don't have that totally ironed out yet, and so I say it carefully and cautiously. Um, but Yahuwah's word, he does give us a calendar. However, um, I wrestle a little bit because maybe because I don't yet have total understanding, but there are certain aspects when it comes to the book of Uyakara, the book of Leviticus, especially chapter 23, when I compare that with the book of Jubileem, Jubilees, and the book of Hanuk, there are certain things that I still have questions about, where I still need clarity from Yahuwah concerning. Some people go by the Hanuk calendar, which is also the Jubileem calendar, but that I still have some unresolved questions. But that's where we should be looking as far as calendar. And when you go by those calendars, really that calendar, everything is fixed. Everything is fixed. Everything is a cycle that just continue to happen on the clock, on time, on point. Every day is fixed, you see. So if you're using that calendar, Yahuwah's calendar, to mark the day of your birth, for example, every year the day of your birth would be on the same day. You see what I'm saying? Whereas if you look at the Roman calendar, every year the day of your birth changes. You see, big clue, big difference. So yes, Yahuwah gives us the stars, the moon, and the sun as signs, and that's the calendar that he gives us. But there are still some things, and the reason why there is this confusion still, again, it's because of our captivity. But in time, Yahuwah is going to make it absolutely and totally clear. But yes, Aki, he does. His calendar is spelled out in the scriptures, but I believe that there are some things that have to yet be made totally clear to us. We are still a people awakening.
Yes, but you know what, Aki? Um, we're still in our captivity, like you said, and I know it's definitely not the day that Constantine um tried to make it out to be.
Yes.
Um, so I feel, in my opinion, you know, if it's working for us right now, we still should have that particular heartfelt day in our heart for Yahuwah, regardless, until the day that Yahusha comes back
Mm-hmm.
and bring us back into his remnant. And then at that point in time, that he will start a new thing,
Mm-hmm.
and then everything will be restored, Aki. And that's how I feel.
Yes, indeed. So, the key is, I believe, the Yahuwah warn us about basically, you could say, making your own law, right? Declaring your own days. Um, so I believe for us, we and our ancestors, when we see them in captivity, they look for the opportunity. They look for opportunities to assemble, right? And like us, I try to say to people all the time, to assemble is not the same as to keep. Okay, so us assembling is not the same as keeping Shabbat, and some people confuse assembling with keeping, and it's really not the same. You see, now in this captivity, okay, take this for example. When they took our ancestors over here as slaves, what they would do is they would force them to work all week long, and then on Sunday when they go to church, they'd tell them they could rest for a little bit. And that's the time when our ancestors, while the slavery on us was heavy, that's the time they would come together and they would, get together and fellowship and whatever they did. So we are still a people in captivity. And so right now, for the majority of us, the most, how should I put it? The easiest time for us to find to come together is on the weekend, you know, and so that's the time we assemble and we fellowship. But I believe that as Yahuwah reveals knowledge, as Yahuwah reveals truth, it's important for us not to declare a time to be what it is not. You see, I can't get up and tell somebody, Saturday is the Shabbat. Shabbat shalom to you. It's the Shabbat. No, I can't do that given what Yahuwah shows me. You see, because now I'm making up my own Torah. I'm making up my own laws. All right. Let me go to Aki Willie. Aki Willie, please go ahead, Aki.
Oh man,
Mm.
shalom, Mashbaka.
Shalom, Aki.
Oh man, well, I keep Yahoo he took my question about should we like isn't the moons or the new moons given to us as like a sign and stuff like that?
Uh huh.
I guess when I think about the seasons, even though the seasons are mixed up in a way, I guess we can still kind of I guess look at the see it as winter time when I guess when the way the weather goes and going into the spring and the summer and the fall and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, Yahuwah will move us in the right direction either way.
Yes.
All we're doing is just following the lead and just following after the truth. And um, I guess say overall, I'm just grateful for tonight's lesson. Shalom.
Praise Yahuwah and Shalom Aki. Indeed, Aki. And one of the things I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go back in the coming days and weeks. I'm gonna go back to the scriptures that lays out the calendar of Yahuwah, and we're gonna look at those scriptures again. And I want us to really look at them and discuss them because I don't have all the answers, family. I don't have all the answers. I'm seeking the answers, and the only reason why Yahuwah is revealing this information is because I'm looking for answers. You see, because you see, I was under the impression, based on what Rome wrote, I was under the impression that the order of the days was not changed, going by the pen of the liar. Because Rome says in one of their writings that they changed the Sabbath from the seventh day of the week to the first day of the week. That's what they say in one of their writings. So I said, well, they say in their writing that they changed the Sabbath from the seventh day of the week to the first day of the week. Now we know what day they say is the Sabbath now. So that's Sunday. So that must be the first day of the week. They said they changed the Sabbath from the seventh day of the week to the first day of the week. So if Sunday is the first day of the week, because that is their Sabbath, then Saturday must be the seventh day of the week. But what they don't tell you in that writing is all of the many other times that they messed with the calendar, and all of the many other times where they lost track of the calendar. You see, they don't tell you that in that writing, so it's just by digging for answers that Yahuah reveals. And that's what we're in. We're in a place of awakening. And as I said this past Shabbat, we're a people waking up out of a deep sleep. And what we're going to find, and what we're finding as we wake up and we open our eyes, and in the bedroom we see monsters. What are those monsters? Great big lies. They're great big lies right here with us in the bedroom, you see. But Yahuah will not leave his elect in darkness. It just takes time, you see, and we just got to be patient. We just got to be patient. Yes, go ahead, Akut.
Please forgive me for interrupting. I'm on my tablet, but I can't speak on it.
Yes.
I'm on the phone. Hello, Yahuah.
Praise Yahuah.
Shalom to everybody. And I just want to encourage everyone, because we do know where we are.
Yes.
And I also would like to, I personally think that we can determine when the Shabbat is.
Mm-hmm.
I think that I remember we went over this one particular calendar
mm-hmm.
that was found in the Dead Sea Scrolls.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember telling you that I think that this is more of an accurate, quote-unquote, calendar.
Yes.
It's not an easy thing to follow, but I would invite everyone to try to look at it.
Yes.
It does use the sun, the moon, and the stars. And it even has the priestly course that they would use that rotated in and out of the temple, or Haykal. It was a cycle of 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of complicated, but if you look at it, I think you can understand a little bit more. It's just a calendar that was used by our people, I believe.
Yes.
And there is a lot of confusion. I can't say that when Rome had this, when they found the Qumran scrolls in the 1945 or wherever, I can't say that they didn't mess with them.
Mm-hmm.
But from what I've looked at, I think you're able to determine when the Shabbat is.
Mm-hmm.
I would have to, maybe we can talk about it, but I would invite people to kind of check it out.
Yes. Yes. Kud, I'm looking forward to if we can together go over it in the room, and we can have the entire assembly. We because we're like sheep, just looking for Abba Yahuah to lead us, and we're just hungry and zealous for His truth, and iron sharpens iron, you see, and every one of us is valuable to each other and to Yahuah. And Yahuah reveals information to all His people. And what we have to do and have to be willing to do is to be humble, to hear and to learn from one another. I disagree with any assembly and any individual and any person that think or say that the women of Yasharal are invaluable, are of no value to our growth. I disagree totally with that. And so in as much as I can learn, as you can learn from me, I can learn from you. I'm not talking about a woman in the role of priesthood, leading an assembly, but we can learn from our sisters. And Yahuah uses the women of Yasharal in the nation of Yasharal. He always has and always will. And so I believe that it's of great value if we go over this together with the assembly. I believe it's of great value. So I'm looking forward to that, Akut. I'm looking forward to that. I know you didn't volunteer for that. I know you didn't volunteer for that.
Okay. This is, okay, we'll talk about that.
Okay.
But this it's not really my calendar. It's just, like we had spoken before, it's just like in the 90s, Yahuah kind of led me to this, and I kind of studied this particular calendar day in and day out. I couldn't even put it down.
Yeah.
But there are some glitches in it, and I know that we are in captivity. We may not get it all.
Yeah.
But from what I could see, this is pretty accurate.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the problem I ran into when you try to figure out this particular calendar using the Roman calendar, you will have issues.
Yeah, but that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. So, praise Yahuah. We'll talk later.
Okay, cool. Tuda, Rabbi.
About it. Praise Yahuah. Shalom to everyone.
Shalom, Akut. Let me go to Aki Yahukanan. Aki Yahukanan, please go ahead, Aki. Aki John.
Hello?
Yes, Shalom, Aki.
Oh, shalom. My question is to you that on, let's see, the Passover, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Shabbat followed that?
So the Passover, the Passover is actually the day that follows the Passover.
Was the Shabbat?
Was the Shabbat, or the day the day that because the Passover begins at evening, and the day that comes in, the day of the Passover, is a Shabbat. Yes.
Okay, now why don't we follow that?
Well, that you see, you have two different kinds of Shabbat. When it comes to the feast days, you have the weekly Shabbat, and then you have what we could call the high Shabbat, the high Shabbatah. So the day of Passover, day of remembrance, high Shabbat. The day of what is it again? Can't remember the names right now. They're not coming to me. Feast of Booth, high Shabbat. You have the day of fasting, day of atonement, high Shabbat, so on and so forth. So those are high Shabbat, separate from the weekly Shabbat.
Okay, because I know in Shemot he talks about two separate ones, like on the first day after, and then the 8th day.
Yes.
Wouldn't it fall somewhere in there?
Yeah, so you have the weekly Shabbat that falls in there, and that's how we figure out also. Well, based on one account, based on the account of Uyakara chapter 23, Leviticus chapter 23. That's how you then figure out the feast of Pentecost or Shabbat, because the weekly Shabbat falls in between there, and you're counting now from the weekly Shabbat in order to get to the feast of Pentecost or Shabbat, or the day of counting, feast of counting. And that's where I say that I am a little bit unclear when I compare that to the book of Jubilees and the book of Hanuk. That's where I still have some unresolved answers, because the counting that it tells me to do in the book of Leviticus, it doesn't tell me to do that counting when I read from the book of Jubilees and um, Hanuk, so that's where I have some questions that still needs to be answered as far as that goes. But yes, the weekly Shabbat does fall in between the first day and the eighth day.
So it'd be one of our weekdays.
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome, Daki. All right. My Aki, praise his name. Please go ahead, Aki.
Shalom, Mashmakar. Shalom.
Shalom to you, Aki.
This is very humbling. Very
Indeed.
humbling. Now, and one of the things that I always like, and this is actually to encourage the rest of the family. One of the things that I like to always say is just keep your eyes on the Father.
Yes.
And in that aspect, we should never fret.
Yes. Yes.
And then if we don't, if we understand that and be watchful of ourselves and things of that nature, we will
Yes.
be all right. Everything He will lead our way, and like you said, we haven't arrived, but we are growing in the truth. So
Yes.
if we keep that in mind, we'll be fine.
Yes. Indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed.
So I love you, Mas Makai, and
Mhm.
Shalom.
Praise Yahuah. Shalom and love you, Aki. And let me just say this very quickly. I see your question there, Akud. Who was it that asked that question? I'm going to respond to that very quickly. I probably missed a couple questions on the board and I want to apologize, but I'm going to try to keep up and try to respond to the questions as they come up on the board also. But family, I just want to say this, that if you listen to me carefully, as Yahuwah revealed things in my searching and my seeking, before I come and just drop a bomb on you like it's the move in Philly or something like that, I try to give you some hints along the way. Um, uh, before uh, 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 I really lay it all out, because I recognize that as children of Yahuwah, waking up, we are in a fragile state. Um, and the last thing I want to do is to discourage anyone, uh, to harm anyone. Yet at the same time, the truth must be told, because we cannot continue to live a lie, you see. And like my Aki just said, the key is for us to keep our eyes on Yahuwah and to remember this, that we do not arrive at the truth, but instead we grow in it. And so we should be excitingly looking forward to growth. And with every lie that is torn down, that is a next level of growth. And with every lie that is torn down, another level of truth will be revealed. And is revealed. And so, it's reason to give praise and thanks to Yahuwah, knowing that He is living up to His word. When He says, "Behold, the day comes," says Yahuwah, "when I will make a new contract with the children of Yasharal." You see, when He says that He will turn His heart back to His children, and He will turn the heart of His children back to Him. And so, we give Yahuwah praise, honor, and esteem that we see the evidence that He is living up to His word. Because how does He turn our hearts back to Him? We know that our hearts are being turned back to Him when we are being turned away from lies. Because what has been happening to us is our hearts have been given over to lies. But as the lies are exposed, we are turned away from the lies, and our hearts are turned back to our Abba. And so we give Him praise and esteem for that. I'm going to go to my Akimat at Yahoo, but let me just respond very quickly to my Akut Sharia, who had asked, I'm trying to find the question. Should ask a question. Trying to find it here very quickly. Oh boy. Oops. I thought I saw the question mark just now. Let's see. Don't take long for me to skip over stuff trying to find these questions. Could you post your question again for me? I'm having a tough time finding it. In the meantime, someone had asked a question earlier about the constellations. Tuda Akut. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. The constellations. Somebody had asked a question about the constellations earlier. What are their purposes? Well, they're not there for us to worship them as the heathen have done, but they're there for signs for the people of Yahuah. So, one of the things that has happened to us as a people, things that we used to know, we do not know, and Yahuah will return that knowledge to us. But the heavens was a sign to the people of Yasharal for many things, whether it be for agriculture, whether it be for what you call for traveling, or just everything. Everything. We could look to the heavens um, to know, for knowledge. You see, that's why Yahuwah says in the book of Tahalim, in Psalms chapter 19, he says, the heavens, Shamayim, declares the esteem of Yahuwah. The earth shows its handiwork. Night after night gives knowledge, and so on and so forth. So all of those things are there for a sign, and our people knew how to use them. As we traveled the oceans, we knew there were markers for us. There were guides for us. You see, Yahuwah placed them near as signs for us, for seasons, for us to know what seasons we're in, and so on and so forth. Now, concerning the Shabbat and when it starts, it is the Romans again that tell us that the day starts at midnight, 12 a.m. The scriptures tells us that the day starts at sundown. Now you'll find people out there that says the day starts at sunrise, or the day starts at 6 a.m. or the day starts at 12 a.m. But as I study the scriptures, I find that the day starts in the evening. Okay, and every day begins with rest, and then you rest, and then you go to work, and then the day comes to an end, and you rest, get ready for the new day. You see, so every day begins with rest, and then you go to work. You see, so as I study the scriptures, I find that the day starts at evening. Yes, just like in Barashit and in other places. The scripture shows us that Shabbat starts at evening. Tells us that in the book of Yahu, Nehemiah, I believe chapter 13. Also tells us that in the book of Uyakara, chapter 23. You see, so and even the way Yahusha kept the feast, kept the Passover, it shows us that the day started at evening, so on and so forth. So, and the rest of our ancestors of Yasharal. So I believe clearly the scripture shows that the day starts at evening, not at 12 a.m., not at 6 a.m., and not even at sunrise. Now there is a difference between the portion of the day where you rest, you sleep, and the portion of the day where you work. So you have a work day. That's the light portion of the day. That's the portion of the day where the sun is shining. And you have the night portion of the day. That's the portion of the day where you sleep. You see. Every day begins with rest. All right. Let me go to Mayaki. Yes, indeed. Let me go to Mayaki Matatyahu. Please go ahead, Aki.
Yes, Aki. Back on the whole Shabbat thing and the appointed times, that Yahuwah makes it clear. He really does, and we have to understand and pay attention.
Yes.
Just reiterating everything that you say, that we're in captivity, everything was stripped from us, and we don't know.
Mm-hmm.
It's taken away. Don't even try to figure it out, because the Shabbat belongs to Yahuwah.
Yes.
It's not ours.
Indeed.
It's his Shabbat
Indeed.
that we come into. So because of our disobedience, okay, we was defiling his appointed time, place, and day. So he took it away from us. It's mentioned. We mentioned it was mentioned in the book of Jubilee, mentioned in the book of Hanuk, and it's
Mm-hmm.
mentioned in Lamentations chapter 2, verse 6.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, just we are here because the scripture says, "Do not forsake the assembly." So we are assembling, and that's what we doing. We ain't Shabbating. This
Mm-hmm.
ain't a Shabbat. This is
Mm-hmm.
an assembly, and we got to understand that,
Mm-hmm.
and not lean on our own understanding about trying to figure out when the Shabbat is, because we ain't going to figure it out
Mm-hmm.
because our culture, our tongue, Yahuwah's name was taken away from us, and now we are coming into knowing His name. He's waking us up now. Our culture, reiterate, we come into confusion.
Mm-hmm.
Now, just, just, just relax. We know His name. We read His debar. He
Mm-hmm.
says what He says,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the end of it. And we just follow. Humble ourselves and just we assemble.
Mm-hmm.
We ain't Shabbat
Mm-hmm.
because we can't Shabbat in captivity.
Indeed. Indeed. And that's according to his word.
It's according to His word.
Yes. And I know we have family here that I'm not sure if you are aware of those scriptures, family, but given the fact that I have brought this information forward, there are many questions, even concerning Shabbat. You hear us talking about what Yahuwah's words say about the Shabbat and captivity. And because of traditions of men, many people are not aware of what the scriptures actually say about that. And so I do have a responsibility to go back and to cover those things again from the scriptures, for so that the family of Yasharal may be very aware of what Yahuwah's word actually says, as opposed to what the tradition of men actually does. We'll be revisiting those things. I have videos on YouTube that cover some of it. I have articles on the website that touch on it a little bit here and there. But it's important, and what Aki said is so important and so true. I want to go to my Aki Delayahu. Please go ahead, Aki.
Thank you, Aki. I'm not gonna be too long.
No problem, Aki.
Um, I'm a, I need to change the tempo up a little bit. On a lighter note, I got a couple of Kus who, we spoke earlier this week, and they were in, they were being celibate. So I was trying to give them a Hebrew definition of what virgin is and stuff like that, and basically what it was is that they're holding out, but it's getting harder and harder for them not to be able to lean in that direction, and because they're trying to uphold a biblical statue where both was where they're both in Christianity and stuff like that. So they're looking at it from from behind Christian lenses,
Mm-hmm.
and I promised them I would get insight about that from a scriptural perspective of
Mm-hmm.
of them being celibate and what a virgin really is, and
Mm-hmm.
because I know I looked it up in the concordance, it was like a maiden or someone who is unmarried or whatever, and
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily have not been, I guess you want to say, penetrated or with,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, stuff like that. So, if you could, I know I'm changing up the tempo a little bit, just on the lighter note. Could you
Mm-hmm.
address that for us so I can make sure I get some edification to
Indeed.
them? And I release the mic.
Indeed. Indeed, Aki. Indeed. Yeah. So, you know, our culture, the scriptures is written. Our culture is based on the scriptures, and the scriptures is based on our culture. They're inseparable. And in Yasher Al, the what Yahuwah's expectation is, and what the culture is that a woman is to remain untouched until marriage. Um, and also, contrary to what we see in the society that we live in, which is the idea that before you make someone your wife, you gotta test drive first, and they put out this idea to our young women, to our young girls, that you need to get some experience, before you go try to make call somebody your husband, so that you know how to please him, or whatever the case might be. In Yasharal, in the culture of Yasharal, it's quite different. Um, a young woman, you'll see the word maiden associated with a virgin, because maiden, another terminology for maiden is young woman, right? So it is expected that a young woman be untouched. You see, it is expected that until you have become married, until you have been taken to be someone's wife, that you remain untouched. And so the definition of a virgin is of one who have, like you say, Aki, that have not been that is still sexually pure. You see, there haven't been any penetration. Here's another fact, though, too. This is how this society has really done something to our old way of living and thinking, because in the culture of Yasharal, people got married much younger than we do today. In this society, you see, people got married younger. There was a greater sense of responsibility, you see. And that, I believe, because this society have just flipped everything upside down, they'll tell you get your career before you get married, and do this and that before you get a husband or a wife, and so on. And so now you have grown people with raging hormones when they're trying to get their career together, and get this together, and get that together, and the last thing on their mind is marriage. But at the same time, they have these raging hormones that needs to be satisfied, and so they ain't getting married, but they're running around playing the whore, playing a harlot with everybody, you see. Whereas marriage is about building family and a nation, the continuum of a nation. That's what marriage is about. It's about solidarity, the solidarity of a nation. It's about the strength of a nation. You see, in order for there to be a strong nation, you need strong families, and it begins with marriage. You see, and so in Yashar Al, in the culture of Yashar Al, marriage is an important part. You see, and before anything else, going into adulthood, marriage comes first, because you're building a foundation, you're building a home to keep the nation strong. You see, so marriage is at the very forefront, whereas in the society that we're living, it's on the back burner, and people just run around playing the harlot. But to be a virgin is really to keep yourself separated, and until marriage, keep you to remain untouched until marriage. um Aki, I hope I responded to the question in a way that granted some clarity. Let me know if I need to go further. But Okay, praise Yahuah. And Key Dela Yahoo said, I had two Akut running into difficulty holding out in their celibacy. Guess they are tired of waiting, and they're finding it hard to keep holding out. Yes, yes, yes. That's the case in the culture that we live in, and you're bombarded and inundated with sexual images all the time. You watch TV, you walk down the street. You ain't got to watch TV no more. There was a time when There was a time when you wouldn't, some things you just wouldn't see, not even on television. Nowadays, they're showing soft porn on TV, so they're advertising underwear. You walk down the street and you got people walking in their underwears, and that's what they're wearing, underwear, and it's a challenge for everybody. Much more when you're not married, you're trying to live a life separated onto Yahuah. It makes it quite difficult. Let me go to Aki. Keith, please go ahead, Aki.
Shalom, Aki.
Shalom to you, Aki.
We all should be happy.
Yes.
Because the simple fact is, the number one thing is we're no longer blind. To
Yes.
me, everything that I learned once my eyes has been opened is a blessing or a baraka. You know what I mean?
Yes, indeed.
So I take this as okay, because we steady learning.
Yes.
And we learn in this, I know myself, in this short period of time, I have learned more in 2 years than I have in 30 some years in Christianity. Matter of fact, in Christianity, I stopped going to church because I say, hey, they do the same thing the world do, so I guess we all going to heaven, so why go?
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
So we should just be happy, like, hey, okay, we learned this. We don't know. Yahuah already told us that he took all this away from us, so we wouldn't know. So,
That's
okay.
right.
So we get together, on Saturday. Okay, so that's cool. Let's just enjoy it and just continue to learn.
Indeed.
All right, I'll release the mic.
Praise Yahuah. Praise Yahuah. So true, Aki. So true. There was another mic up, and somebody dropped their flag. Who was that? Come on back, Aki. Aki Trevin, please go ahead. Let me see. You might be having trouble finding your mic. Let me help you, Aki. Hold on. Let me try to find Aki Trevin's mic. Where's Aki Trevin? Wow. Oh, here we go. I got it. Aki?
Yeah.
Yes, Aki.
Yeah, Shabbat Shalom to you. I mean, Shalom.
Shalom, Aki.
I was just calling, I was just coming in and saying what a great lesson going on tonight. That is very important for us, necessary once again. And I was just going to ask a question about Shabbat. Since we got this information tonight, on the seventh day, so-called seventh day now, since we don't really know, is it still going to be considered Shabbat in the assembly, or
no,
it's going to be Shalom?
Yeah, it's just Shalom, Shalom. Because if we say Shabbat Shalom, we're declaring that this is the Shabbat. You see, we're declaring that this is the Shabbat. You see, and that goes counter to it. It goes contrary to what Yahuah has revealed to us. Family, I understand we have a desire to return to our heritage, and we're supposed to have that. That's how you know that Yahuah is working in us, right? When we have this desire to get back to Him and to get back to what we have lost. And that's what captivity is about, to have us long to return to what have been stripped from us. Can you imagine having that feeling of just desiring to say with all knowingness, Shabbat Shalom Aki, Shabbat Shalom Akut, Shabbat Shalom Mashpaka, to say that and to know that you're actually not speaking out of time or out of line? That is indeed a baraka. But again, and it's sad. It is sad to know that we've been lied to. But and it's sad when you're not able to do that. But that's what discipline is about. I used this example before. If you have a child and you send that child to their room, right? Which is basically what Yahuah did to us. He put us on timeout. But if you put a child on timeout, send them to their room, and you have all kinds of stuff in their room. They have the game in their room, and then you tell them, well, you're on timeout, but you could bring your friends over. As long as they don't come downstairs, just stay up in your room. Guess what? That's exactly what that child wants. After all, they don't want to be in your space. There are times when they want to be annoying, of course, but the older they get, the more they want to be away from you. They don't want to be in your space. So imagine if Yahuah put us on timeout and then give us all these games in our room, where everything is as if nothing changed. You're on timeout, but everything is just the same as it was before you were on timeout. You can enjoy the same benefits, except you can't come downstairs. Except you can't, the land is not yours. What kind of discipline would that be? He would be a dysfunctional father, you see. So that's what the intent of discipline is supposed to be, to make you miss what you had so that you can appreciate it when you get it back, you see.
You know how it feels to me, if I can use the illustration of a person that's incarcerated, right? They're waiting for that day of visitation, that visitation day to come, and that time where they're going to fellowship with their parents and with their family. But that time of fellowship, just like their family don't show up. For me, it kind of feels like, wow, the one thing I felt, the one time I felt like you would be in the presence of Yahuah, because it is the Shabbat. It really ain't what it is. Like, that's messed up.
But you don't have to wait for Shabbat to be in the presence of Yahuah, because Yahuah is with us always. You see, it's not,
about that appointment. That appointment is gone.
Yes, but then that's what we long for and look forward to. But when we assemble, we're still in the presence of Yahuah. You see, we're in His presence all day long, every day. You see, but we look forward to that time when we can truly gather and where we can return to that place that is appointed. You see, but that's why it says in the book of Tahalim, in the book of Psalms 137, when our people were cast out into captivity, they sat and they lamented, and they said, by the rivers of Babylon, by the rivers of Babal, there we sat down, and there we wept when we remember Zion. At that time, they knew the Shabbat, but they weren't able to keep Shabbat, and they wept because they couldn't. There we wept when we remember Zion. While the wicked carry us away into captivity, they required of us a song. But how can we sing Yahuwah's song in a strange land? Problem is, you have a whole lot of people they think that they're just giggly and don't see anything wrong with singing Yahuwah's song in a strange land. Every opportunity, just let me sing, just let me sing. You see, when our people who knew what they missed say, how can we sing Yahuwah's song in a strange land? Lest I forget you, O Yerushalayim. If I forget you, may my tongue cleave to the roof of my mouth, they said. They called out to Yahuwah. You see. And so that's what happened when you realize what you miss. You realize what you had, and now you don't have it. Shabbat is rest. Shabbat is rest. Shabbat literally means rest, you see. It is rest and reflection. So we rest, we fellowship, we reflect on Yahuwah, you see. Yeah, you had another question, babe? Akut Yaria, you had your flag up and you put it down, and I see your flag, Aki, praise his name. But I'm going to go to Akut Yaria, if I might. Akut, could you, I know you dropped your flag. Could you come back, Akut?
Tira. Everything that has been said is so true. We are in such a hard place. But Yahuwah has revealed His name to us. Mm-hmm. He's revealed a lot of things to us that we didn't know.
Yes.
So in our coming back as a people,
yes,
He possibly could reveal the Shabbat.
Absolutely.
And so I don't think that when something comes our way, I think we need to study it to either disprove it or prove it, because
Yes.
it's there. And I think we really have to kind of look at that also.
Yes.
All right,
Absolutely.
to
Absolutely. I agree. I agree, Akut. When he stripped us of the name Jesus, what did he do? He revealed his true name, right? And so with every lie that he strips us of, he reveals truth. It's just a matter of being patient. And even after the true Shabbat is revealed, it is still true that one cannot keep the Shabbat in captivity. Or else, if we say we are, then we are actually going against breaking his Torah. We are disobeying his word, even though that goes contrary to what the most popular of teachers are teaching. But that's what Yahuwah's scriptures say. Um, let me go to my Aki. Praise his name. Please go ahead, Aki.
Yeah, pertaining to what the sister said is very true. That's very true. The Father is constantly revealing His truth to us, and that's a good point that she made.
Indeed.
Do you know anything about the Watchman report?
Yes, yes. As a matter of fact, when years ago, I used to look at that, but I had a conversation with the guy. Oh, wait. Maybe I'm mixing up two of them because there's a Christian, there's a Christian out there, Christian website, and he has like this online broadcast that he does, call it the Watchman Report. And I had a thing with him a few years back, several years back now. But then there is also what's his name again? Watchman Yahoo. Is that who?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, I think so.
okay, yes. Go ahead, Aki. Yes, I am familiar.
Do you think that we're responsible to try to reach out to the brothers and to the family pertaining to this issue?
Yes, it's interesting. I've tried to reach out on different issues to different individuals in the past, and it has gotten me labeled different things. For example, we're talking about we're talking about the issue of the feast and captivity, and that has made me quite unpopular among a lot of people who teach differently, even though it's really clear in the scriptures, but people aren't willing to take another look.
And
Um,
see, that's sad because even Scripture says, "Let us reason together."
yes,
You know,
yes.
and then if we can put ourselves aside and our emotions out of the way, we can, talk and, even if we pray about it, even if we agree to disagree on certain things, and but to take it to the Father and pray about it, make it a whole lot better than to put ourselves in the way of what it is the Father's trying to reveal to all of His children. But
Yes.
just like you said, it's sad that uh, you try to reach out to your brethren, and you get labeled this, that, and the third, instead of them actually putting themselves aside and go actually contrary to Scripture, what it says, let us reason together.
Indeed.
But I think it's something. I guess the rest of Mashmakah, if they know anything about him, to try to reach out to him and
Right.
pray for our people.
Yes, indeed. Aki.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. And that's my desire. I really desire to see us all come together as one in Yahuwah. That's my greatest desire. I'm going to give you another example of a key watchman Yahoo. A few years back, he was using the name Yahweh. And I came across one of his videos and I commented on his videos. I was only trying to be helpful. Um, and I was telling him that that's not the name of the creator. I wasn't being rude or mean or anything like that. And he responded to my comment and he called me a drive-by prophet. He called me a drive-by prophet. I wasn't driving by. I was just trying to help. He called me a drive-by prophet. But since then, he has come to a knowledge of the creator's name being Yahuwah. Now, concerning, he still uses Yahushua, I think. Um, but he's come to a knowledge of the creator's name being Yahuwah. But it's a process. It's a process. And it's still my desire to see us as the people of Yahuwah come together and function as one people,
Indeed,
one nation.
indeed.
All right. Was there anyone else? Anyone else before we go any further here, family? I just want to make sure. I'm sorry, YouTube. I sometimes miss your questions. I'm so sorry. Um, Let me try to see if I can. Uh, let's see. Let's see. All the pastors' questions. Okay, some of the conversation don't have to do with me in per se, but I'm sorry if I miss any questions there. That's one thing I prayerfully hope that it will change, where the family who join us via YouTube will be able to you'll be able to join the audio at some point. Maybe they'll make that change. It'll be a whole lot easier. But trying to keep track it for me, it can be a little bit difficult, as I have quite a few different things I'm managing as we go through the broadcast. All right. Well, family, we're gonna prepare to close out here on this evening. And again, I just want to encourage you to be encouraged. The fact that Yahuah continued to reveal lies means that he is at the same time actively revealing truth, and we just have to continue to pursue him, pursue his truth, pursue his word. You see, and as Akut, even Akut Yariyah just remind us that it is absolutely possible that Yahuah will make plain is true set apart day, and I believe wholeheartedly that he will, and that he is doing it. Okay, so we'll continue to seek him, and he will lead us into all truth. Praise Yahuah. Leila Tub to you also, Akut. All right. Well, family, we're going to close out in prayer, and Yahuah willing, we'll be seeing you for our next fellowship, which is on Saturday. We can't even call it the seventh day anymore, huh? Because it's not, you see. All right. Praise Yahuah. Praise Father, Akut, Yariya, Tuda. Praise you. Yes, indeed. Yes, Aki, Adi. Yes, indeed. It's going to be strange. Yes, indeed. Praise Yahuah. Yes, not for Saturday, but on Saturday. Because if we say we just assemble for Saturday, we're saying we're assembling for Saturn, you see, because that's why they named it Saturday, in honor of Saturn, even as we just saw, right? When we look at all the evidence, it's impossible to know. It's just totally impossible to know, because there have been so many changes made, both willfully and unwillfully. But so many changes over the years and centuries have been made that it's impossible. It's impossible, totally impossible to know. Yes. All right.
Aki Mikal.
Yes, Akut.
I love you.
I love you much, Akut.
Yahuah, the heathen is one thing.
Yeah.
His people is something else.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Impossible. Shalom.
Praise Yahuah. Indeed. Praise Father. Abba, we just thank and praise you for this time. We thank you that you are committed to your people. You promised that you would awaken us, that you would reveal your truth to us, and we praise and thank you that you are doing it, Abba. We pray that you would just continue to keep us encouraged and strengthened, and help us to see that this is not the end, but rather it is just the beginning. and that the only thing awaits us is beauty, because you promised that you would give us beauty for ashes. Hallelujah. That you would give us the oil of joy for a spirit of mourning. Father, you promised that you would rebuild the waste places. Hallelujah. Praise Yahuah. So we just thank you for what you continue to do in your people. We pray, Yahuah, that you would continue to barak Yasharal, that you would continue to heal Yasharal, that you would continue to mend Yasharal, that we would be as one people in your one truth. And so, Father, I pray that you would unite your people in your truth. Bring us together. Make us humble before you. Have your way in our lives and continue, Father, to strengthen us by your truth. Tear down lies. That is our prayer. We pray it all the time, Father, but when you do, it can be as a shocker. It can feel stinging. It can feel heavy. It can feel even discouraging. And so even though we ask, when we get the answer, sometimes it don't feel good. But I praise you that you are a friend that sticks closer than a brother, and that you promised that you would not leave us and that you would not forsake us. And so may we hold fast to you, Yahuah, in all that we do. Praise Yahuah. Pray that you would barak your people, lift up your people, strengthen your people. Hallelujah, and continue to reveal you to us and to reveal ourselves, our hearts to us, that we may repent and that we may turn to you wholeheartedly. Do this, we pray. Barak every household represented here and your people wherever scattered. And pray that you would keep us safe until we come together once again. In Yahusha's name. Amen. Hallelujah. Praise Yahuah. Love you all, family. Love and appreciate you. Toda Rabbah for your great patience and for all of your input and your continued encouragement, and just I praise Yahuah for you. May Yahuah barak you and keep you. May Yahuah lift up his face upon you and show favor unto you. May Yahuah cause his face to shine upon you and to give you his shalom. May the name of Yahuah, that is the preserving name, that is the saving name, hallelujah. May the name of Yahuah be upon you. Shalom. And Lela Tub Mashpaka. Praise Yahuah. Shalom, family.